12th of April 2025, still a good morning, a bit colder, but there's talk of rain coming to rural Ireland. Now, I made the earlier video on this device here, and you see the way it was hardly ever used. It appears to be virtually new, although there is a wee bit of wear on the very tips. Now, it's up against an iron gate here in the yard. So, you see the way it goes. It's for cutting, obviously. It's for cutting vegetation. I've cut that piece out of it. Ignore that, please, for now. So clearly, whatever it cut was meant to come back on that plate, and that was meant to discard it. Now I've turned it around here, and this is the other end, and clearly this was not meant to come in contact with vegetation. And there's one little telltale sign, is that there is a sign of welding. It's very hard to use this phone as a camera in this context. There's welding here, something was cut off or broke off. But other than that, I see no other spot where it was intended to be held to whatever machine or how it was to work. Now, one of the things is, if you look at the, not too easy here. If you look at the crank, it's well made. It's well designed. It mightn't be properly balanced, but it's well designed. Here, there's no pin going across. The pin is built into the housing there. You see that? And it's bolted down with two bolts. Now, the sun makes it equally hard for me to record this, because if you get the wrong light conditions, you won't be able to see anything. But this sort of a dynamo was on it. I don't think this is the exact one. I took off the dynamo and I have it somewhere, and the reason was to see how it would behave. But it had every indication of being a totally ordinary Lucas type dynamo. Totally ordinary one. Now, the camera wouldn't go on play there off pause, so I had to go over to a straight piece of ground anyway and get it in the shade. Anyway, this one has bits broken off the dynamo, but the dynamo on this other one was pristine. It was perfectly untouched, but I never got checking to make sure it wasn't rewound. But as far as I can see, it was a standard dynamo, and it was housed here. And in doing so, this thing here, you see this here, was part of its connector. It was connected on there, and it was secured here somewhere, and that was it. So the mystery deepens. It's well made, hard plastic on there, and but really not adequate attachments or linkages for to work on any machine. So I'll try and get a better spot. So because I'm using the camera off the back of it as such, not the part where you can see what you're recording, I have marked here that this stone here is the right place for me to be. So you're probably seeing this. Now, there was a man who knew about these, and he worked down in the south of Ireland on farms and did a course down there, and he was up here, and he has connections up here as well. And he says it's an attachment for a combine harvester to cut oilseed rape, and that the oilseed rape, when you cut it, supposing you're cutting that way, when you cut it and the crop is here and the cut part, the stubble is here, when you cut here, the rape falls in like that, and then the wheels of the combine trample on it, and that portion is lost and gone against your profits. And so this machine is designed to cut it sideways so that it falls in at the back of the main knife of the combine. Does that make a sort of sense? Now you would think that modern combines would have some side cutter. You would think that. But I've watched videos of them cutting oilseed rape, and I really don't see the problem. If the combine kept out of foot, it would probably catch all this. I don't really know, and that's why maybe some of my subscribers or viewers would be able to comment. This, after all, has a big vintage input into it. I don't apologize for doing vintage. We have to, and machinery, because I'm a farmer, and we are attached to an audience from the country. But one of the main things about it is someone made it, someone designed it. I remember there was a plaque on it, Verticut Mark II, and it had a Dublin address. But what I think happened is this, and it's relevant to my general videos. The 12-volt system or 24-volt system of any machine or car, and there is a bird in severe competition with me here. He is really going mad over there on the tree. But the 12-volt system can only drive strong power in the starter type motor. The only type of a motor that will work off the 12 or 24-volt system is a starter motor. But they will only run for a limited amount of time. If you run them for an hour and a half, they get hot. If you run them for an hour and a half, they drain the battery. The alternator of the machine is not adequate to drive it. Okay? Excuse me, I can't pause because the button's the other side, and I can't do that. Right. So, someone decided that the dynamo of a car would do. Now, we had dynamos here long ago, and I often ran them as motors. They will run as a motor, but they're extremely feeble. But this man who's seen these things attempting to be used, apparently, told me that the dynamo eventually burnt out. It got hot and burnt out. So it was a failure. And I don't believe there is any of these in existence. The only way you would run that Verticut is with a starter type motor. That definitely would have enough power to drive it. But it wouldn't have enough to keep it going permanently. It'd do if you're only running it about 1/8 of the time. If it was only for occasional bits. But it would only do for that. It's virtually impossible to drive any appliance worth talking about, other than windows and wipers, of course, which are low draft. They pull very little power. It's virtually impossible to run anything of any strength from a 12 or 24-volt system. Right, if you made a big enough alternator and a good engine, you'd need the horsepower in the engine. You'd probably want a decent engine. You'd probably want a small tractor engine to drive the generators. You then possibly could drive a starter type motor, but that's a lot of extra, and it's probably not worth the bother. But what this machine does prove, I'm sorry for the noise. There's somebody cutting a hedge or doing something. I don't know what, cutting timber or doing something up there. I don't know what it is, but it's noise anyway. But it's no problem. We're in a semi-industrial farming area here. Gypsum Industries is only a few miles up the road. The mines in Mahercloon are only about 3.5 miles over that way there, and Riley's quarries over there, and we're in the middle of an industrial area in a way. But to go back to the main point, somebody thought this would work. And the big problem with all electricity is that it attracts the wandering, daydreaming minds of men. I've never known women to be attracted by it somewhere or other, but I know a lot of men. One man told me years ago, he's now dead and gone, I lie in bed awake at night thinking of how I could make electricity and keep the lights on with no fuel at all. a perpetual motion machine. And there are still a sizable number of people who believe a perpetual motion machine will work, that you can make energy out of nothing. And that breaks the laws of thermodynamics, and you cannot do it. You cannot make energy out of nothing. If that could be done, we would have millionaires back in the 1920s when the Industrial Revolution got going right in America and in Britain and elsewhere and Germany. None of them ever managed to do anything or make anything to run out of nothing. And you'll still get people believing it. And men of about 28 are about the worst type. 28 to about 35. They're about the worst type of all. They do believe this stuff. They do believe it. So that's what the verticut is, according to someone who saw it working but admitted it never worked right, that the dynamo got overheated. And as I say, when I was out young lad, a gossin, as we say around here, you could run a dynamo from a battery, surely, and you could stop it with your hands, you could squeeze it with your hands. So I can't understand how that ever got enough power even to run. My impression is somebody went, maybe it's a prototype, that's what it could be, but somebody went to the trouble of making it without working out the mathematics or without working out the figures, the amperage, the voltage, and the watts. And the watts of a dynamo running in reverse is tiny. A dynamo differs from an alternator in that it is a commutator. It has an awful lot of poles around the armature. It has two or four field coils. And the armature has a lot of poles. And it only collects, the generation wave is like this. All manufactured current in a revolving device or kinetic device is alternating. It goes like this, you see. But because there's so many of these poles, they overlap, and the best current is at the very top. And the brush only picks up the piece at the very top here. And then it moves on to the next. So you get very smooth, high quality power coming out of it to charge a battery without any conditioning at all, really, except a cutout switch and a regulator. When the battery got too high, the regulator cut out the power, and then it clicked in again when the battery got low. It was a regulator. I have some of them here, all using electrical windings. Now, so that's what it was, and it's a monument to how people can put a lot of investment in, or even do research without doing the basic mathematics. You cannot make energy out of nothing. You can't put electricity in a bag, but you can fool people to thinking that you can. And I just saw a video there early this morning, of American girls mainly, and they're as poor as church mice. They have nothing. They're always going out. They're keeping 2 jobs and they can't pay the bills. And this is what I've been trying to campaign against. And this is what's happening in Ireland. You go woke, you go broke, you vote left, you get a promise of a happy utopian communist system, and you get Stalin, you get Hitler, and you get Kim Jong-un. That's how the human race is capable of being fooled, and it looks like it's not going to change anytime soon, particularly in Europe, where they voted in Ireland for every party, strongly left-wing, communist, cultural Marxist, but also economic denial and economic unreality. We'll see you back, folks. I'll go around now and turn off the video. Well, that's what it is. It's an attempt to cut the sides of the oilseed rape or other crops, whatever they may be, and have it fall into the combine, but it never come to anything. I got of a man that got for nearly nothing at an auction, and he says, "Well, do you want that thing?" And sure, look, it's not much good, but I'll keep some bits of it anyway. We'll see you back soon. Comment underneath. I hope that answers your question.